Here's a puzzle. The New York Times today quoted Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, as saying that she thinks the president of Russia has lost it. According to the Times, after Angela Merkel talked to Vladimir Putin on the phone last night, she called President Obama and told him that she was not sure that Mr. Putin was, as the Times put it, quote, in touch with reality. She said Vladimir Putin was in another world. But here's the puzzle. At the same time, Germany is also the EU nation that so far is the one saying no to the idea of moving against President in another world by kicking Russia out of the G8. So on the one hand, Germany says Putin is wrongfully invading another country, and when you talk to the guy right now, he sounds... But on the other hand, they say he definitely should keep his spot in the G8, in that elite, economically powerful group. They're saying Russia is behaving abominably and their president is a crazy man right now, but don't take this step to isolate them economically. Why not? Russia is number 2, second only to Saudi Arabia in the amount of crude oil that they export. And a lot of those crude oil exports go to Europe. The European Union relies on Russia for 30% of their oil. Similar story with natural gas. Russia's second only to the United States in terms of natural gas production. And Europe, again, gets a third of their natural gas from Russian supplies. And until 2011, the main way Russia got its natural gas into Europe was specifically through Ukraine. They got a series of pipelines all over Ukraine that carry Russian gas into Europe. In 2011, Russia did build an alternate route, a pipeline that goes under the Baltic Sea. That one takes gas directly from Russia into Germany. As the U.S. tries to organize international condemnation and consequences for Russia's behavior here, is it possible that Europe specifically is so dependent on Russia for its daily energy consumption that there's only so far they will ever be willing to push against Russia no matter what Russia does? So far, they've been willing to say they will cancel a summit that was due to be held in Russia, and they're all saying more or less derogatory things about Vladimir Putin and his recent actions, but not much more. Can Europe do more? Are their hands tied by their dependence on Russia in economic terms? Can Europe go further without hurting themselves? Joining us now is P.J. Crowley. He's a former Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs, currently a fellow at the George Washington University Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communication. Mr. Crowley, thank you very much for being here.
Always a pleasure, Rachel.
Is there a limit on how hard the EU and the U.S. will push Russia on this or any other issue?
I think there's a style difference. Europe prefers, coordination, consultation, convincing argument as opposed to confrontation. And obviously, at 28, it's difficult to get consensus within the European Union on decisive action. And as you say, some countries have a more developed economic relationship with Russia than others. Germany is certainly at the forefront.
In terms of the susceptibility of Mr. Putin and the Russian government more broadly to pressure from the West, if there isn't going to be a military response from the West, if it is going to be economic and diplomatic pressure, where are they most sensitive?
Well, I think there's some talk about isolating the Russian banking sector. That would profoundly affect the oligarchs within Russia who are trying to turn Russia into an economic power. So there might be some leverage there. I know, my former boss Hillary Clinton used to say you don't get into an argument with your banker. I think in the context of Germany they would say you don't get into an argument with your utility company. So I think there may be some opportunities on the financial side, but crossing over into the energy side, Putin's energy card may not be as potent as it once was. There's a far more global and diversified energy market out there, but Germany in particular does depend heavily. 30% of its gas imports come from Russia.
Would it be important to the Russians if the G7 considered, well, if the G8 considered becoming the G7 again, if they considered ejecting Russia from that international body?
I think in the context of Angela Merkel, she's one of the European leaders, if not the European leader, that has the ability to talk to Putin. I think she's trying to potentially have, be a channel to try to, talk Putin down from the ledge that he finds himself on. So that may be one tactic where she's looking at perhaps, canceling the G8 meeting, but not at this point making the G8 into a G7.
Do you sense that in the end, Putin will ever deal with the new government in Ukraine? Is he actually looking to reinstall Yanukovych?
Well, I mean, for the moment, Russia recognizes Yanukovych, does not recognize, the interim government. I think we'll have to look at the fortunes of Yulia Tymoshenko and see whether, given this crisis, she's got her own, set of issues, from the past. At least recently, the Maidan protesters, were very suspicious of any Ukrainian politician. But now, given the Russian power play, Tymoshenko's stock may be rising. She's one leader that's dealt with Russia effectively and maybe a leader as president that Putin might be comfortable being able to have a real conversation with.
Fascinating stuff. P.J. Crowley, former Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs, fellow now at George Washington University. Thank you, P.J. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.